Once these big institutions get a taste for it, in terms of the efficiencies, the cost savings, etc., it's almost a moot point as to, why wouldn't you do it, right? Like all of the
401k account, right? You have a million accounts. That world is going to disappear, right? We're going to move into a world where everything becomes centralized in a wallet, a cryptographically protected wallet.
Technical analysis is super fun and it's definitely a part of the investment schematic, but we have to know at the end of the day what we're investing in. So one of the main reasons why I invest in the Canton coin is because it offers the ability for you to turn your investment into passive income generating cash flow. And we know that large institutions for a fact are doing that 110%. I've shown time and time again that institutions are participating in DeFi, generating and turning their digital assets into income generating machines. So here's just an example. Over on LinkedIn, SharpLink generated 446 ETH from staking rewards last week alone, according to this post. That brings their total cumulative number to 8,776 ETH since launching the strategy on June 2nd, 2025, y'all. That is not even 6 months. And look how much money they were able to make. Do you do the math on how much 8,776 ETH is worth? That is a lot of money. That's how much their staking strategy was able to accumulate. It says here, our ETH is still 100% staked in institutional grade manners and keeps compounding value for the treasury, right? So I'm just showing you guys why I'm participating in Canton, because these institutions are for a fact interested in earning rewards. And so as a retail investor, what am I focused on? I'm not focused on price appreciation, which is what 99% of the average retail crowd is focused on. I'm focused on cash flow. What can my digital assets do for me? Even if it's a few $100s invested, how can I turn that few $100s into pennies, pennies into dollars, dollars into hundreds, hundreds into thousands, so on and so forth. So I said here, cash flow is king. Speculative price appreciation is cool, but hope is not a strategy. Which of your digital assets are paying you while you sleep? We must shift our focus to on-chain income streams that don't care about hype cycles. If your entire portfolio relies on one day selling higher, you're still trading time for luck. The future belongs to people who understand this shift. Assets that work, capital that circulates, yield that compounds daily. Price goes up, great. Price chops, you're still getting paid. Price goes down, you're stacking more of the asset that you believe in long term automatically. Don't just ask what can moon, start asking what can pay me. Cash flow over narratives, yield over hype, education over guessing. This is the era of ownership that earns. And remember, the gentleman Yuval at the beginning of this call mentioned digital wallets.
I'll bring an interesting example from an issuance we had in the fixed income space a while back, where we reached out to one of the prominent asset managers, and they were fine putting $50 million into the issuance. And then we said, great, you can have your own wallet.
And so here I have a screenshot of setting up my reward tier in the Braun wallet featuring the Canton network. Now, I'm not going to go over that in too much detail. Here's a quick screenshot of the rewards recently that I've generated, but I've been making about $8.50 minimum per day by just having 10,000 Canton coins over on the Braun wallet, paying me passive rewards. And now don't take that from me as an influencer on the internet telling you guys that this is the new era and future of finance. Let's dive into the documents. That's where we come in here at CYPRX to show you guys that this is not something that you should be ignoring, and instead something that you should 110% be paying attention to, because the biggest names in the game that are partnering with Canton Network are. So remember, I said cash flow is king, yield generation is the future. Well, let's check this out. And don't forget that Yuval, at the beginning of this, digital asset co-founder and Canton co-founder, said digital wallets are going to be the new big thing amongst institutions. Honestly, everyone on planet Earth that plans to participate in the financial system should read this document, but most don't know it exists or don't know where to find documents like it. That is where CYPRX research comes in. People will call you crazy for saying the financial system is pivoting until you show them documents like this straight from Franklin Templeton, one of the largest asset managers on the planet. While retail debates on Twitter, institutions are quietly preparing for a complete transformation of how people save, spend, borrow, invest, and access retirement. And so this is the document from November 2025, The Coming Pivot from the Standardized Workplace and Retirement Offerings to Client-Centric Lifestyle Planning from Franklin Templeton. And if we just read a little narrow passage, it says, today, there are two models for how wallet-based holders can earn yield on their cash balances and save. A second model of the crypto exchanges and wallet providers are adopting user-driven earn programs. These programs provided by market leaders like Binance Exchange and top wallet providers like MetaMask allow holders of cryptocurrencies or stablecoins to select from a menu of products that create yield, including staking protocols and increasing tokenized money market funds. These are regulated security products with fully built-in consumer protections. Estimates from Banque de France put U.S. government tokenized money market funds on holdings at U.S. $7 billion as of June 2025. And as more types of participants offer stablecoins, the amount of these cash equivalent products held in wallets is likely to rise. So just going on to talk about this transformation from an account-based system to a wallet-based system. Here it even says, the emerging wallet-based world and convergence of spending, borrowing, saving, and investing. The wallets of the future are likely to emerge as the interface to every individual and institutional financial activities and the centerpiece of new one-stop financial shops, right? And so keeping this in mind, heading over to Ripple Swell, here we have Sandy Call from Franklin Templeton going on to talk about exactly what I mentioned in the post. Cash flow is king, digital wallets are the future, and everybody should start to pay attention and get involved.
401k account, right? You have a million accounts. That world is going to disappear, right? We're going to move into a world where everything becomes centralized in a wallet, a cryptographically protected wallet where all of our assets are going to be aggregated. And this is why they need to be tokenized, right? So that they can sit in the wallet and we can start to optimize and have that aggregation, not just an aggregated view, which is all we're capable of doing today, even with all the technology that exists. We just aggregate the view across all of our different accounts. We're going to actually have real aggregation, and these assets will sit side by side and be interoperable. And this opens up tremendous new opportunities for how to use those assets, how to create passive income from those assets, how to create active income from those assets, how to create passive income from those assets, how to create active income from those assets.
So again, you have Franklin Templeton, Sandy Call talking about this transformation from a wallet or an account-based system to a wallet-based system, and that's from Ripple Swell 2025. Now, if we come over here, you all remember where Sandy Call talks about posting digital assets as collateral.
We are working with facilities with some of the big crypto exchanges already, where people are able to post our tokenized money market fund as collateral instead of posting stable coins. And there's an advantage to that. They get a haircut on the amount of collateral they need to post because it's a regulated instrument, right? And it's really given them an ability to continue to earn yield on their underlying collateral postings while those postings are being made with the exchange. So that's been a great use.
So here again, you have Sandy Call talking about being able to post your digital assets as collateral. Cash flow is king. And Sandy Call, stemming from Franklin Templeton, now mentioning this twice, and me showing you guys another reason as to why I invest in Canton, because you can get it to work for you in the digital asset ecosystem. Well, who partnered with Canton? Franklin Templeton, November 12th, 2025. Franklin Templeton's Benji technology platform expands to Canton Network. The Canton Network today announced the expansion of Franklin Templeton's Benji technology platform onto the Canton blockchain, providing global institutional clients with seamless access to tokenized investment products. This integration creates new opportunities for Canton's global collateral network, where participants such as the QCP plan to now leverage the platform as a source of liquidity. The development reinforces Canton's ability to support interconnected use cases across traditional finance and digital asset markets while meeting the regulatory and privacy requirements of global institutions. Our bottom line is to meet institutions where they are, and just as importantly, where they are headed, said Roger Baston, head of digital assets at Franklin Templeton. Integrating our Benji technology platform with the Canton network allows users to develop private blockchain options alongside the interoperability clients expect without compromising on the transparency and security that define our approach. Together with that team, they deeply understand the institutional market structure and its quirks. We're building a foundation that can unite traditional finance rigor with the innovation of tokenized markets. Now, all of that aside, let's get into this document. Now, this is a document from July 2024, but it is a very important document because it talks about Canton coin. And it really gives you a perspective into the possible demand that we could see for the Canton coin in the future, considering everything that I've showed you thus far and in previous research video breakdowns. Now, one thing that we are going to need to keep in mind as we read through this document, something again that Sandy Call said on stage as of recent, this is only from this past year, she specifically said that these institutions are going to need to provide nodes. That is very important when we go over this pilot and this case study that Canton was involved in, where over 14 of these node providers, i.e. being large financial institutions, participated in this pilot. Take a second and listen to Sandy Cole again from Franklin Templeton, who is partnered with Canton for collateral tokenization, right? Listen to what she says about being a node in the future as a financial institution.
That may be a mistake that you guys have made or you've seen made that you would recommend people don't make as we look to move this forward quickly?
I'll start out. I think that you need to understand, I think one of the most unfortunate branding exercises ever was when we started calling them cryptocurrencies, because it created this expectation that somehow they're a currency and they can be spent on things. And you need to understand that it's a way of buying block space on the ledger. That's really the purpose. And so you need to hold these cryptocurrencies in your treasury if you're going to be recording trades on a ledger. You need to hold these cryptocurrencies in your treasury if you're going to be recording trades on a ledger. And if you're holding these assets in your treasury, you need to figure out what you need to do to hedge against them. And that's when you need to figure out that you need to do node operations. So I think that there is this whole cascading set of realizations that
I think everybody needs to really take into consideration what she just said. You are going to have to hold these cryptocurrencies, right? That is huge. And how do you hedge against the volatility of a digital asset? Well, you earn yield on it. You earn passive income. And how do you do that? You can become a node provider, right? A validator of the network. You validate the network and it just gives you so many more primitives, right? So much more access to the network. And so now if we come over here, you've heard all of these things. Let's read the documents. This is very important. I just want to show you guys how many highlights I have so that way you understand the length of how long this is going to be. You can see all the highlighted parts we are going to read thoroughly through so that way you understand. Okay, you understand this. And then after we're done that, we're going to jump into this document. This is unlocking collateral mobility through tokenized gilts, Eurobonds, and gold. Euroclear harnessing Canton network for 24/7 mobility. Okay, and I'm going to piece it all together, taking screenshots of this and kind of just verbally breaking down the demand that we could possibly see for the Canton coin after you understand first what creates the demand for the Canton coin. Okay, how that is distributed, how that is affected. Because if you don't understand that, there's no point in investing it. Okay. So let's read thoroughly through this document. Shout out to the CYPRX researchers. Mind you, all of these documents that we cover, all these panel discussions, all these fundamentals can be found inside the private CYPRX Discord. So if you guys have no idea where to find any of this research, head over to cyprxtrading.com. We'd love to have you guys on the team. Motivated individuals that are looking to expand their research curves, their horizons, their technical analysis, their fundamental understanding, and the ones that actually want to gain access to the documents that matter. So reading this, Canton coin, a Canton network native payment application. I'm going to try to speed read this so we can get through the couple of highlights that I have. Accessibility and connectivity across subnets of the Canton network will be supported by an infrastructure called the Global Synchronizer, decentrally run by a group of super validators. Remember what Sandy Call said about how institutions are going to need to become node operators.
In your treasury, if you're going to be recording trades on a ledger. And if you're holding these assets in your treasury, you need to figure out what you need to do to hedge against them. And that's when you need to figure out that you need to do node operations. So
As part of the launch, the global synchronizer, the super validator, will also launch a payment application called Canton Coin to facilitate the transfer of value, provide incentives, right there, right? These institutions are going to want to be incentivized. They're going to want to earn yield and serve as a payment for infrastructure costs. Just as the Canton Coin overcomes several key limitations holding back other networks from widespread enterprise adoption, Canton Coin is specifically designed to be compatible with an ecosystem used by regulated financial enterprises. This paper presents Canton Coin's its mechanics and its role in incentivizing all stakeholders of the Canton network to build a thriving ecosystem. The goal of the super validator is to build an ecosystem to foster and accelerate the creation of a network of networks, which I went over in the previous video. If you guys haven't watched my previous content on Canton Coin and the BIS and the network of networks, make sure that you guys go check that out. If applications and regulated finance on other areas, a backbone infrastructure like the global synchronizer is an important part of doing so, but it is far from sufficient for starting an ecosystem. Networks acquire and deliver value through network effects, where existing users and applicants provide value to new users and applications, and vice versa. To incentivize the first user and applications to do something in this absence of that pre-existing value, special mechanisms are needed to provide first mover advantages. This includes the super validator themselves, which are providing the first services within this ecosystem, including the global synchronizer. Furthermore, ecosystems like the Canton network benefit significantly from having both a means of transferring value and publicly visible metrics for activity and use. To meet these needs, the super validators have included a payment and incentivization application in the launch of the global synchronizer mainnet. The application is based on a token called Canton Coin, and each super validator will independently run an instance of the Canton Coin application. The Canton Coin serves multiple purposes. The Canton Coin application incentivizes all stakeholder groups to provide value, or more precisely, utility to the network. For example, third-party application providers can mint Canton Coin in return for offering their products and services via the global synchronizer, and super validators can mint Canton Coin in return for running the network backbone. The Canton Coin token provides an optional native network mechanism to pay for network use. For example, the super validators operating the global synchronizer will allow the creation of a transaction traffic balance across the global synchronizer using Canton Coin. The Canton Coin token provides an optional network native payment mechanism for application use. Any application provider can choose to charge application fees in Canton Coin. For example, the Canton Name Service, an application offering validator name lookup operated by the super validators operating the global synchronizer, will charge application fees in Canton Coin. I know that you got to nerd out a little bit with me to get through this, but let's get through it, okay? The Canton Coin, because it'll all full circle when I do the presentation on the next document. You just now first have to understand what drives demand for the Canton Coin. That's what we're reading into. The Canton Coin token provides a public gauge of some aspects of the network and application use. It gives visibility into the fees paid to different application providers as a proxy of the value that their application provides to users. The Canton Coin application provides an example of how to build public applications on the Canton network. The Canton Coin is carefully designed to match the needs of a network and an ecosystem for regulated finance. So think about that. What is the scale of regulated finance, you guys and gals? Okay, just think about that key vocabulary right there. Look that up on your own time. I'm not going to sit here and give you speculative hype. Just look that up. While at the same time allowing its users to achieve the goals stated under motivations above. This is accomplished by following a key set of principles set forth. Canton rewards utility provided by users for the global synchronizer. Canton Coin is not issued in exchange for investment. In contrast, most blockchain networks issue tokens in exchange for an investment in a developer of the network in anticipation of future network value. Most of a network's value comes from its users, assets, and applications. The bulk of Canton Coin can be minted by the stakeholder groups rather than just super validators. Again, in contrast to most blockchain networks where only miners can mine tokens. Infrastructure providers and application providers can mint Canton Coin only by providing utility to the network. So the only way that they can mint more Canton Coins is if they provide utility for the network. That is very important because as utility for the network scales, so does the price of Canton Coin. And the only way that they can mint more Canton Coin is if they provide utility to the network. There are no pre-sales or special pools for founders. Canton Coin can only be minted once the full decentralized global synchronizer was running. Furthermore, we avoid design choices that could lead to artificial scarcity or speculation bubbles. As stated, goals pursue through the burn and mint equilibrium mechanisms explained below is that an open market conversation rate for Canton coin always intends to point that matches the utility provided by the global synchronizer ecosystem of users, infrastructure, and applications. Canton coin is an optional token. This is important for users of the global synchronizer. This is in stark contrast to be almost all other blockchain networks where tokens are built into the protocol and cannot be avoided. For example, in Ethereum, gas fees are paid in ETH as part of every transaction. Participant node operators that want to connect to the global synchronizer can use Canton coin. Remember what Franklin Templeton, Sandy Cole said about using digital assets as collateral, digital wallets, having the ability to generate yield, where if these institutions are going to want to provide on these, participate in these blockchains, they're going to need to run node operations. Participant node operators that want to connect to the global synchronizer can use Canton coin to prepay their traffic directly, or they can arrange with a third party to set up a traffic balance like a cell phone data plan paid in fiat currency on their behalf. Canton participants and nodes can then use the global synchronizer with or without Canton coin by drawing down this traffic balance. Super validators provide a small amount of transaction traffic for free, and any additional traffic is prepaid. Validators. A Canton participant node with Canton coin application installed. Validator nodes provide network access to users, validate both Canton coin transactions and other installed application transactions exclusively for the parties hosted on that participant node. Last but not least, it says, as an example of this burn and mint equilibrium mechanism, which I'm not going to bore you guys to death and read, it says, if the use of the global synchronizer grows in a given year and a user burns 3.5 billion Canton coins as fees, the supply of coins will decrease by 1 billion that year. In this scenario, since the supply decreases as the utility increases, it would be reasonable to expect that Canton coin to USD conversion rates would increase. Since the global synchronizer charges USD denominated fees, any conversion rate increase would cause a decrease in the number of Canton coin users will burn as fees. So just understand, again, that in detail, the demand of the Canton coin will be driven by the utility that the global synchronizer offers. Okay. And so think about all of traditional finance for just 1 second, how massive that is. All right. Now consider the recent partnerships of Canton and just looking at the pilots. All right. So we're going to come over to this document here. Now that you understand what will drive demand for the Canton coin, unlocking collateral. And again, mind you, no user can mint Canton coins unless they provide utility to the network. All right. Unlocking collateral mobility through tokenization, gilts, Eurobonds, and gold. Now, I know that this is relatively outdated in terms of time of recording, but it's still very important so you understand the breadth and the scale in which this could possibly turn into. All right. During June and July, digital asset joined forces with Euroclear. Just look up what Euroclear is, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Blow your own mind. The World Gold Freaking Council and a broad industry group of investors, banks, CCPs, custodians, collateral agents, and a CSD together, they completed a successful pilot that tokenized gilts, Eurobonds, and gold and used them as collateral across an interlinked series of margin, collateral, and securities lending transactions. And remember what I just showed you guys about Sandy Cole, Franklin Templeton. They partner with who? Canton for collateral. Okay. And this is recent. So that's why this post from back in 2024 is now relevant, because we're still having recent partnership announcements where they're choosing, these large financial institutions are choosing Canton for collateral. All right. For collateral tokenization. That's the only reason why this is relevant. Now, let's dive into this. And I'm just going to bring up screenshots as I talk through this. So why live production of tokenized collateral could fundamentally drive demand for Canton coin. That's what I want to show here. This recent Euroclear-led tokenization pilot on the Canton network, combined with the Canton coin's economic design, provides a rare institution-first blueprint for how real utility can translate into sustained token demand.
you. I don't know if people are aware, but some of the major trading exchanges allow you to post treasuries through a banking relationship. So this is already happening. This divide between the two worlds is very quickly dissolving. And so being able to solve that with a universal solution that allows the large institutional players to bring the best forms of collateral into the crypto markets is symbiotic.
Yeah, and Leo, you can't forget Galaxy in there in terms of the TradFi participants. But yeah, what I really like about this is in terms of like just thinking about the marketplace and what you're really trying to address. Like I think the global bond market in the U.S. is like, call it $50 trillion, and a ton of that trades as basically cash and cash equivalent in the sense of like repo. Right. And so when you're trying to actually come up with like a real world use case for crypto, this is the first thing that comes to mind for me. It's transferring value. It's crypto as collateral, and you can't really get to the ultimate state of that without addressing these transparency and privacy nuances. And so in terms of, Hashnote being on Canton network, like this is exactly the type of synergy that you kind of need to have happen for us to really get to the point where you're addressing a $50 trillion market. And so in terms of, Hashnote being on Canton network, like this is exactly the type of synergy that you kind of need to have happen for us to really get to the point where you're addressing a $50 trillion market. Right. I know that you guys have done, you're saying $2 trillion in repo, sorry, $2 billion in repo volume every month now.
No, it's trillion. We do 50 to 100 billion a day. Broadridge is here in the room.
Guys, like that's an amazing number. And if you told me, 2 years ago when I was, 4 years ago when I was on a repo desk, that there'd be a blockchain moving trillions of dollars in a pretty efficient way, I'd tell you, that sounds a little crazy. But, the whole idea is that once these big institutions get a taste for it, in terms of the efficiencies, the cost savings, et cetera, it's almost a moot point as to, why wouldn't you do it?
When read together, both the documents that I shared with you guys, and I encourage you all to read them yourselves, these documents outline a clear pathway. If the pilot workflows were to move into live production, which I firmly believe at some point in time in the future they will, I don't have a crystal ball to tell you guys when that will be, but I have a firm belief that in the future, probably before 2030, we will see this at scale. Canton coin becomes structurally necessary, not speculative, for global collateral markets. And that is important, considering what Sandy Call from Franklin Templeton said about how these digital assets will be posted as collateral in the future. So what I'm trying to show you guys is not some retail narrative. It is an infrastructure thesis. So let's look at the pilot, right? The pilot proved real, continuous, high-value network usage. The Euroclear pilot demonstrated live-like multi-day collateral workflows involving gilts, Eurobonds, and gold, executed across 27 different institutions and 14 Canton nodes. Remember what Franklin Templeton, Sandy Call said about how these institutions will need to run node operations in the future. And look at what they're testing already on Canton network. 14 Canton nodes and 500 plus transactions. The document specifically says, the pilot provided the ability to create a digital twin of commonly used collateral as well as previously immobile real-world assets, or RWAs, and to use those tokenized assets as collateral in an atomic real-time transaction. This was on page 3. This matters because Canton coin demand is directly tied to usage of the global synchronizer, not speculation, which we went over in the document. If these institutions want to mint Canton coin, they have to bring utility to the global synchronizer, not speculation. Speculation does not drive the price of Canton coin. Every production transaction burns Canton coin. According to the Canton coin paper that I read to you guys, all fees for the global synchronizer usage are burned, not paid to validators directly. Says specifically on page 8, all fees for using Canton coin and for creating a traffic balance on the global synchronizer are burned by the user who submits the Canton coin transaction. So in production, the pilot activities, repo, margin calls, securities, lending, default, closeouts would all therefore require what? Transaction traffic, resource usage, atomic settlement across applications. All of these actions will do what? Burn Canton coin. This creates a direct mechanical link between institutional activity and token demand. The third thing that I'm paying attention to is the 24/7 collateral mobility, which means continuous burning pressure when full-scale adoption takes place. The pilot specifically validated intraday and around-the-clock collateral movement. It specifically says that, which is completely breaking traditional market hours. The document more specifically says that the pilot demonstrated that these assets could be used with immediate effect to meet intraday margin calls or be used in securities lending transactions outside of normal settlement cycles, processing times, and zones. Canton coin is explicitly designed to support this model, where it says in the document Canton coin, a Canton network overview, participant node operators can use Canton coin to prepay their traffic directly. That means a 24/7 collateral market that implies continuous synchronizer traffic on the global synchronizer, continuous fee burns, and continuous demand for the Canton coin. The burn and mint equilibrium, which ties price to utility, not hype, which is why I encourage you guys to go read about the burn and mint equilibrium. Unlike typical crypto assets, Canton coin follows a burn mint equilibrium where supply dynamically adjusts to usage. The document specifically says network usage must burn 2.5 billion Canton coins per year to keep the number of Canton coins in circulation stable. This mechanism is very explicit, and it says if the use of the global synchronizer grows, users burn more Canton coins, supply decreases, and the conversion rate would therefore increase. This means price appreciation is a consequence of adoption, not marketing tactics, right? In order to scale the price of Canton coin, real utility has to be there and present. The Euroclear document specifically highlights a structural imbalance. It says here, SIFMA or SIFMA data shows a $230 trillion universe of marketable securities. Yet the global collateral market is just 25.5 trillion. Well, this pilot demonstrated that tokenization directly increases collateral velocity, not just representation. Specifically on page 17, it says collateral becomes more mobile and liquid. It can be pledged and recalled more quickly with atomic transactions. And remember what Sandy Cole said, guys and gals, that digital assets in the future will be posted as collateral, right? Digital assets. What is she talking about? You see what they're partnering with freaking Canton. They're literally telling you in their documents what their pilots are demonstrating. Okay. So even if a fraction of this trapped collateral migrates into Canton-based workflows, just a fraction, Canton coin burn scales with it.
To crypto as collateral, and you can't really get to the ultimate state of that without addressing these transparency and privacy nuances. And so in terms of, Hashnote being on Canton network, like this is exactly the type of synergy that you kind of need to have happen for us to really get to the point where you're addressing a $50 trillion market. Right. I know that you guys have done, you're saying $2 trillion in repo, sorry, $2 billion in repo volume every month now.
No, it's trillion. We do 50 to 100 billion a day. Broadridge is here in the room.
We have legal finality enabling institutional scale, where institutions will not transact at scale without default enforcement. The pilot explicitly validates this. It says the secured party has a perfected title, allowing them to seize and ultimately liquidate collateral assets in case of a default. This reinforced legally that the ledger can stand up in a court of law. Canton coin demand, therefore, comes from regulated institutions, not retail users. So, with that in mind, Canton coin is not just infrastructure fuel. It is an application-level incentive mechanism. Application providers, it says in the document, can mint Canton coin in return for offering their products and services via the global synchronizer. But minting is capped and competitive. And we know for a fact that these financial institutions are going to compete against each other in this new digital asset ecosystem.
Once these big institutions get a taste for it, in terms of the efficiencies, the cost savings, etc., it's almost a moot point as to, why wouldn't you do it, right? Like all of these big institutions, money market players, etc., they're fighting for basis points at a time. And so if you can take that whole operational layer and convert it and put it on a blockchain and, cut down your labor force by 80-90%, like guys are going to do it.
As more featured applications gain usage, it says, available rewards are split, reducing the effective multiplier. This creates early adoption incentives, long-term scarcity as the competition increases, and alignment between usage and value. Last but not least, to wrap this up, the Euroclear document explicitly states the next phase, which is super important. It says, following the successful conclusion to the pilot, digital asset will work with interested participants to develop a production solution, right? Production means what? Persistent synchronizer traffic, ongoing collateral reuse, real economic burn cycles. So when we read these two documents together, they describe a system where usage burns Canton coin, adoption tightens supply, institutions, not speculators, drive demand, and price will reflect the real economic throughput on the global synchronizer. Canton coin is structurally tied to global collateral mobility, which we know is one of the biggest use cases in all of traditional finance. That's coming directly from the DTCC themselves, who partnered with Canton Network. 24/7 institutional finance, tokenized sovereign and commodity assets, legal enforceable settlement. This is not a narrative built on promises. It's a mechanism that is already being tested, already has been tested, and is now approaching production phases. If production follows the pilot, in my personal opinion, Canton coin demand will become phenomenally unprecedented. It'll be massive, huge. I'm not going to speculate on what that number could be because there's so many different numbers that one could throw around. But in regards to the use cases that it solves and what it's being tested and piloted for, that number could be astronomical. So hopefully today you guys enjoyed that deep dive. Do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button, subscribe to the platform if you did. I know that this is kind of a different style video breakdown, but nonetheless, delivering you guys some of the realest research in the game, always keeping it real 100 with you guys. Don't forget to set your alerts and your alarms if you watched part 1 of the video breakdown today, where we went over some areas of interest to be paying attention to and mindful of on Canton coin. As always, be cognizant, be aware out there, always strive to do your own personal research. Remember that none of this is financial advice, and I'll see you guys in the next video breakdown.